Hi, welcome to This Is My Voice, Photovoice as a tool in collaboratively designing with you. Our hosts today are me, Paloma Torres-Davila, Rosa Corrada, and Gabriela Irizarry Porrata. Today is November 4th, 2021, and this is session number A15. So today we're going to introduce ourselves very briefly. We had some technical issues, so we're going to try to breeze right past these few initial slides, talk about the basics of Photovoice, and then we thought we could walk through the process with you guys in terms of how we structure the session, sorts of activities we do, and share some insights. So we're going to keep on recording the session in case anybody drops off, and you can access the rest of the recording in case we have some technical issues. So saying that, right, I'm Paloma Torres-Davila. I'm a clinical psychologist, but I work a lot with youth development and community development and applied research. I'm gonna let you know we're in Puerto Rico. We have lots of technical and power issues, so we may drop off at one point because the power goes out, but do not worry, we're used to it. So just in case, my co-presenters can keep on running with the presentation, and we'll also send you the information by email. So Jeffrey, if before you pop out, if you wanna pop in your email address in the chat so we can make sure you get the materials at the end of the session. So Rosa and Gabriela, if you guys would like to introduce yourselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rosa Maria Corrada Rivera, and I am a sociocultural anthropologist. And when I'm not working with community participatory projects or analyzing public policies at the Third Mission Institute at the Albizu University, you can find me enjoying watching sports documentaries. It can be any sports, and dreaming about what life would be like if I was an athlete, and discussing usually with Paloma all the social dynamics that go into sports. So hello, thank you for being here.
And Gabriela?
Hi, my name is Gabriela Irizarry Porrata. I work with Third Mission Institute as a research psychologist. My preparation is in research in psychology and academia. And what brings me joy is playing cards. Well, actually winning in card games. So that brings me joy. That and seeing a good film. And that's all about me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Gabriela and Rosa. So very briefly, if Jeffrey and Jay, you could, say where you're from, what your role is in terms of education, and what brings you joy. To me, it's reading. I like to read a lot of fiction. So yeah, go ahead.
Good morning from Guatemala. Just here, I'm at the American International School here at Colegio Maya, and I am the curriculum director. And the thing that probably brings me most joy is infusing always a sense of galump for play into what we do so that we stimulate the brain in our learning.
Oh, so sad you're not going to be here. We're going to play.
Well,
But we'll share the resources with you. You can see the recording. And Jay?
Hi, can you see me?
Yes, we can see you.
Yes, sure. My name is Jay, and I work as a relationship and couple marriage counselor. And I use a lot of OH card. I don't know if you know that. It's an open heart card. And recently I bought it, and I start to experiment a lot of those OH cards. It's like tarot card, but
Oh, yeah. I'll look into that. I haven't heard of that before. So yeah. I'm learning something new in this session. Thank you. Saliha, hi. Saliha, we're just presenting ourselves very briefly, what our role is and what brings us joy.
Thank you. And sorry I'm late. I was trying to help move people to the breakout rooms. I apologize.
It's okay.
Like myself.
Okay, so I'm going to leave you with Rosa. So she can briefly explain Prosa, which is the project we're coming from, and we can go dive into Photovoice. So Rosa?
Yes, thanks, Paloma. And expanding a little bit about where we come from in terms of work and what kind of bring us here today. Like we have said, we work in the Third Mission Institute, which is in an applied research center, part of the Alviso University in Puerto Rico. And at the moment, we're working in a community participatory research project called PROSA, like Paloma just said, and it stands for Puerto Rico Optimal System Change. And this project, which receives funding from the Office of Populations Affairs from the United States, is a collaboration between the university and 3 other community-based and faith-based organizations here in Puerto Rico. And the purpose of the project is to improve the optimal health of adolescents and reduce teen pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections. And one of the goals of this project is to use system thinking and community engagement approaches for the improvement of youth health outcomes. So as part of the different components that the project has, Paloma, Gabriela, and myself, we're implementing Photovoice. At the moment, we have had 3 groups between the ages of 12 to 17, and we have completed the process with them. And today we are going to kind of show you a little bit of the work that we have done. But before we go into that process, we would like to talk a little bit about what is Photovoice and why use it. So thank you, Paloma. So Photovoice is a community-based participatory action research method. And I don't know if some of you have heard about it before, but like the name suggests, it uses photography combined with storytelling to share experiences. And it was first popularized and introduced by Caroline Wang and Mary and Burris in the early 1990s. And it was used by them as a component of their work, working with women living in rural farming communities in China. And they use this method to basically assess health and socioeconomic needs in the communities, and with the idea of supporting efforts that could improve reproductive health in outcomes in these farming communities. And in our case, like I've said, we use Photovoice as a component of this larger project, and with aim of trying to get into what it means to have optimal health for teens in 4 municipalities of Puerto Rico that have high numbers of teen pregnancy. And we try to use Photovoice as a means to co-produce with youth possible solutions that would lead to better services and basically to create a better environment for them to develop and grow up. So more into like the theory part of Photovoice, it's often used as a research, as a participatory action research project, because it allows participants to use photography and storytelling as tools to explore issues that are of concern to the participants that are involved. And from the starting point, right from the beginning, everybody that is involved is considered a co-researcher. So it should provide a space that is safe and that empowers people who are typically silenced. Asking participants in a research project, and many of you might have experienced, or asking students in classrooms to express their views and share their lived experiences, oftentimes can be intimidated and difficult for them. And even for myself, I mean, it's very hard when you sit down face to face to have an interview, especially with marginalized groups such as youth, immigrants, women, people of color, where issues of trust and communications are sometimes problematic and may lead to misrepresentation. So using visual methods help reduce those challenges and then provide a better space for engagement, where participants can actually take control of the whole process. So by letting youth, for example, in our example, or I guess Jeffrey with his students in the colegio, it's a way of giving them the space to take control by producing their own images. They can express what what they want, and especially with this generation that it's so big into media production. This is a really good tool because it gives a sense of voice among the people that are participating. So instead of asking youth, for example, to sit down for an interview and ask them, so how do you feel about health as a teenager? Or how do you feel, or what it's like as a teen mom? Which is sometimes very hard. It's a way of saying, here, take the camera, take the microphone, and show me what you think. Show me how you feel. How do you interpret your surroundings? And in this way, it promotes more of a critical reflection and power shift in the education process. And it leans more into an egalitarian way of producing knowledge and actions. So just as in participatory action research, where all participants become co-investigator in the educational setting, in the classroom, like Paulo Freire talked about, teachers and students can be situated as equals, collaboratively creating knowledge through the collective reflection and dialogue by means, in this case, of images. And actually, Freire used photographs to ignite that introspection and dialogue, arguing that we can discuss the content of an image. When we discuss the content of an image, we tend to step back from our lives and engage more with the abstract, and participants are challenged to see and understand their world in a new way by reflecting about stories from others within the group, which will ignite more critical thinking, and that can lead to education as relating. So grounded in this principle, we also believe that the work done as a collective within the Photovoice experience, and it's what we have lived, allows for a deeper understanding of context, the context of the people that are engaged, and behavior in different experiences, which can facilitate meaningful social change and actually bridge those gaps between teaching and learning. But moreover, our experience, Photovoice has been a really good research and teaching tool to develop social emotional skills like self-awareness, social awareness, build relationships, and it has been really good for decision making. So now let's dive into the process of Photovoice, and I'm gonna let you with Paloma.
Yes, and briefly before that, just wanted to add, because I do know there are some people in more therapeutic settings, that we have worked this in a community, more therapeutic settings. For example, I did this with a group that they and their families were survivors of violence. And before therapists came in to, treat them or have group therapy on what we thought were issues within their community, we went out with this group of youth and their families in the community. And through Photovoice, we were able to discover and explore those things that were meaningful to them and that they wish to work through in these sessions. So it can be applied in a lot of different settings as well. So saying that, we're going to sort of walk you through this process. And our first session is always, setting the stage for the play, right? We briefly explain what the purpose and objectives of the Photovoice experience are, and that it's very collaborative and very participative, because we don't want a lot of what we joke about with them. We've learned a lot of emoji language, and a lot of what we told them is, I'm 40, so not necessarily the same things I cared about 20 years ago or 25 years ago are going to be the things they care about now, because it's a very different world. And we want to make sure we hear what's important for you so we can design this program for you. We do a virtual data walk. We use data that's related to the theme. In this case, for example, the project we talked about was teen pregnancy and STDs. So we present these data and just sort of using lots of infographics, and we ask them to react. What sparks curiosity? What are you surprised with? What is important to you in terms of this? And we go copying that information down, and Gabriela will later go deeper into that. And we also use a lot of play. We use play in every session. We believe play is essential to generating those bonds, creating that group dynamic, getting to know each other in different ways, in ways where our strengths and our diversity are enhanced and are validated. And also activate that creativity. We have lots of kids with, different functionalities, and we tell them that any way they can bring any sort of participation, any sort of thought, any idea, everything is valid, and how we can work to bridge those together. And that's always established since that first session. Oh, Gabriela, we can't hear you. You're on mute. Oh, maybe you want to take your headphones out.
Can you hear me now? Okay, great. I'm sorry. I'm having technical difficulties. So what we do, like Paloma said, we start by playing. Every session we start playing. And one of the things we do is that we ask, instead of the general question from what does it mean to have a healthy future, right? The more traditional approach would tell the participant what a healthy future is, but instead, like Paloma and Rosa were mentioning, we do things a little bit differently here. We ask what a healthy future is for them. And it is through conversation and play that they limit their area of interest within this general question. So from this general question, they establish, and we establish with them through conversation, through play, specific areas of interest. And what we do is that by active listening and purposeful questions, we provoke a discussion. And after this discussion, we organize through their ideas into more general categories in a process that looks a little bit messy. Sometimes it looks a little bit like this image that is shown right there. We develop a map with their ideas organized in specific categories. And once they see their ideas organized in this map, we develop specific questions with them. So from a broad, what does it mean to have a healthy future, we derive more specific questions that serve as sort of guidelines through the process of picture taking or data collection. Remember, they are participants in the process of investigating. There are co-investigators. So we derive these specific questions that serve as guideline collection in the data collection, guided by their own worldview and perspective. So for this, I use the tool called Lucid, but there's a lot of mind mapping tools that you can find on the internet for free. I just prefer Lucid. I've tested a lot of them, and this one I really enjoyed. So Paloma just added the link right there. So this is the one I prefer, in case you're curious. So this was the second session. During the third session, again, we begin with the process of play. So by playing, again, we generate a safe space for them to explore ideas and be creative. During this third session, we provide a photography workshop where a trained photographer provides useful techniques for picture taking. We also review the questions that they will be using as a guide for the process of data collection. We go over that a little bit again and discuss that with them. Sometimes they bring more and new ideas that they've been reflecting, and sometimes the questions change a little bit, the same way it happens with us when we do investigations. And as a final but very important task, because we're taking pictures of people in real time and in the community, we review the ethics of picture taking also. We discuss in detail when to ask permission and other topics related to confidentiality and consent during the process of picture taking. This includes discussing and providing a form that they use so the people can provide consent when it is necessary according to the guidelines, the ethical guidelines that we discuss with them in detail during this session.
Okay, so we want you to be part of this experience today, sort of make it more practical. And we're going to be clear, we're not doing Photovoice because, as Rosa said, it's participatory action, right? So since the beginning, we should have generated a question, got what was important for us. But for the sake of this, we'll do a bit of photo elicitation, which is we're using photos
for
to
the
spark.
sake of playing.
Yeah, as a way of playing. So we're gonna ask you if you can just briefly, maybe you're on your computer or your phone, and you can look at a picture, you can find a picture or an image or a drawing, anything that tells you how learning should be. So we're gonna give you like a minute or two so you can search that through your computer. I'm gonna do it myself right now. And we're gonna ask you to just drop it in the chat because Gabriela will start working with that in ways that we work with our teams.
Yes, it can be any kind of image. It doesn't have to be a picture, a photo.
Okay, so I'm gonna drop it in here. I just dropped in a picture so you guys that I found on Google search. Sally had dropped hers, so Jay and Rashmi. Anything that tells you how learning should be. How should learning be? Sorry. And we went over this question like really intentionally for a couple of minutes while planning the session. So Gabriela will be capturing those pictures that we're sharing, and she'll build with that something that sort of simulates the process that we go through in Photovoice. And we will, okay, so picture of a phone, Gabriela. Jay is saying it. Oh, wait, okay, so maybe you can screenshot Jay with his phone, Gabriela.
Do you want me to talk? Sure. I see phone as many and multiple purpose.
Okay.
Yeah, like this phone has calendar, recording, photo, camera. Even though it's learning, but it has many phases.
You're getting there. Yeah, you're getting there, and so we're copying down these. Are you copying down these comments, Gabriela? Okay.
Oh, do you want me to say again? So it's multiple and many function phases. That's yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jay. So you jumped ahead of a step, but we love it. We're gonna copy it. That's what we validate a lot, that any idea that comes up, we're gonna use it. So Rosa, if you can keep on.
Yes. Later, this is gonna be a build up. So at the end, we're gonna see the results. But continuing with the process in a Photovoice project, session 4 is all about presenting the images that the participants have brought up, and we usually give them about 2 weeks to go out, go into the field, go to their communities, and just take the photographs based on the guiding questions that were created through the sessions before. So, but before the participants present their photographs, as always, we like to take time to play so we can warm up our engines. And usually for this session, what we do is we use a game that deals with exploring like different perceptions and interpretations of something, because usually we might be looking at the same image but have different perceptions and interpretations of what we are looking at. So before jumping into the exercise of presenting pictures and talking about that, we like to warm the engines before that and do it in a more fun way. So after that, after playing, we give time for each participant to present their photos. Usually we ask for about 1 to 5 photos from each group, depending on how many people we have in the group. In terms, also usually because of time management. And so what we do is we have a set of questions that guide the conversation and how they are going to describe each image and what it represents for each participant. And Paloma will present you the guiding question. It's called showed. So after each person presents what it means to them, what we are looking at, and them as author of that photo, the conversation opens for the group to add more ideas to what have been presented. And we like to use Miro, and Paloma just sent you the link for that application, because since at the moment we're doing Photovoice in a virtual way, it gives us the tool to have like a mural where we can add the ideas that are being brought up, and we use Post-its to put every single idea that comes up. And by using Miro, everybody can look and see all the ideas coming up live. So because the purpose is that for each person to build from the ideas that have been shared. So the image that you are seeing right here is the work of one of our groups, and you can see like right next to each image, there's a bunch of Post-its, and those are the ideas that came up during the conversation and all the things that the group share with everybody. And that is very, very important because it will help us construct the narratives that will accompany every image. So after we have done all the Post-its and we have the voices of all the people involved heard, we create the narrative. And in this example that you're seeing here, the theme was how where do teens get their information about sex education, and what is why teenagers are having sex. So those are the pictures that are that inspire the Photovoice experience. So this session is where the collaborative creation of narratives for each photos begins, and it's one of the most important sessions. And usually it might take 1 or 2 days, so everybody has the space to share their thoughts. So it's very useful to plan the whole process, taking into consideration the time that will take. So be flexible with that when you're planning. Next.
Yeah, and the way that it helps us also is the yellow ones are what the participant, the original person who took the picture is. And then the orange ones are the group's response to what they see and to what the original participant brought. And the green ones are the responses to the responses. So we want to make sure we capture all those ideas before we construct the collective narrative. Some groups are a lot more verbose than others. And especially now virtually, some people, they chat along, others are more silent. And some groups do need a bit more egging on to contribute to the discussion. So for these groups, usually it's with younger people, it happens a lot. We ask them, it's the acronym SHOWED, and it's an acronym that's very much used in Photovoice. And the first one is, what do you see is happening here? Like very concrete answers. For example, I see a slide. And what is really happening here? And it could be like, I'm looking at the slide with fear or with excitement. The third one is how it relates to our lives, because remember, we want to bring this to the very contextualized application to their lives. And what problem or condition does it respond to? Because we want this information to bring about tangible changes in their lives. How could this image educate people? And for example, with gender issues, it's a really huge discussion right now here on the island. So a lot of them were saying, you know, We want this to let our curriculum developers know what we think about sexuality and how we want this to be included in our education. Or we want politicians who are making decisions based on how we'll be educated to know about this and what we can do about that. So all these ideas are captured around, and it's just a very fluid conversation. Sometimes we answer these questions concretely, sometimes the conversation evolves beyond that, and it's okay. This is just a useful tool that we use to help them along. So Jay, was the head of the game, and Jay gave us a few words to explain his image. So as Jay said, we're going to ask you in 1 to 3 words to share what your picture of what should learning be was stating. So Gabriela copied Jay's words. My word is exploring. So you can either unmute yourselves and share as Jay did, or you could copy it in the chat. Why did the picture you chose to share, what 1 to 3 words does that say about learning?
Do you want me to write it down?
No, you're good, Jay. We copied it down when you shared.
Do you want me to share?
We have it. We
You
copied
can,
your words.
if
You're
you
good.
can say more words, that's okay.
Yeah.
So the 3 words, many and multiple and diverse.
Oh. You did a great job there of summarizing. Thank you, Jay. So anybody else who shared a picture, you can just share in 1 word or 2 or 3. How should learning be? And there it is in the chat. Okay. So now we move on to session 5 after we generated that whole conversation and we copied down those thoughts.
Yes, and thank you for playing with us.
Yes, forgot that.
Yes. So moving to session 5 in this process, usually what we do is we discuss the narrative arc to describe the structure of what a good story should have. And we use the 5 elements of the Freitag's pyramid to describe the structure for an effective story. And we take some time to discuss this because we're trying to develop narratives that will tell the story of each image, but also we will be creating like a meta narrative of the whole experience, and we want the story to read well and to be able to transmit the message or the story that the group wants to tell. So, we find that that Freitag's pyramid, it's a very useful and easy way to construct narratives. And basically what it says is that any story should have at least 2 halves, the play and the counterplay, with the climax in the middle. And you can see that in that image on screen. And the first half, usually what it should include is an introduction where you expose the who, the where, when, and you can think of any series or movie that you like, and you can see all these steps in the story. And after you introduce those the characters and you basically set the scene, then you move to the rising action, which is when the obstacles start to happen and before you reach to that climax or the turning point of the story. And that will lead to the second half, which goes to the falling actions. That's when usually in the story, the obstacles or the problem is resolved. If you have a movie about sports, that's when either the team loses or the team wins the championship, and everybody's happy because all the tension is getting resolved. And then at the end, you have the resolution. That's usually when the main character tells the moral of the story and how it ends. So Usually it's with celebration, or if it's a horror movie, the characters survived and you end the story. So each story, if you look at them, if it's a good story or story that has been built appropriately or is effective, you will have that arc, and you can see that arc. So we go with the participants, we talk about that, and we ask them what story they want to tell, and we start moving and curating the images according to that story that they want to tell. So in this session, besides talking about the narrative arc, we finalize the narratives. We put the last dots and make any corrections that the group decide, and we validate with the participants. And this process of validation is super important because the narrative is a group effort. So it's not the voice of just the person that took the picture, but the picture kind of becomes a group picture. So it's very important to validate with them that we have the message that they want to send to the community. Also, captions are created for each photo, so it is like a brief description of the bigger narrative. And like I said, if we're gonna if they decide, we place the order of the pictures according to that story that they want to tell. And that's what happens during this session. And in this session, we're almost getting to the closing of the process. So next.
Yes. And for the sake of time, we wanted to play with you for a little while, but we'd like to have a more conversation in terms of if you guys have questions or anything, and also see like the products that Gabriela generated with what we shared. But basically we use, as a form of play, we use these story cubes. I don't know if some of you have seen them. They share them around like these little cubes, boxes of cubes. I bought mine in Walgreens, for example. They sell them on Amazon, different types. And there's also the virtual. So if somebody can plug into the chat, I think Rosa was gonna plug it in.
I'm gonna do it right now.
So we play a bit with this. So we make sure that everybody sort of internalizes how we want to make our whole story complete. And we have two basic rules. First of all, it's always the yes and, right? You need to build from the previous idea. And we've gotten some crazy, amazing stories through that. And also assumed, right, your assigned role within the arc. So if we're talking about climax, we want to make sure that people sort of bring the problem in. If we want to talk about resolution, it's how does, that story end? What is that ideal future we would like to create and solve together? So we use it a lot. We play around. They get really excited. People at first are like, oh no, I don't know how to tell a story. But then once we start warming up, people just run along with it a lot. So with that, the pictures are chosen. They were ordered according to that narrative arc. And Rosa, if you want to share how we close up this session.
Yes. So after we have the narratives, it comes the time to design a final product. And as we said, Photovoice should lead to an action. So the participants need to decide what they want to do with their project. And to design this final product, we usually do brainstorming exercises so they can start, creating and deciding what they want to do. And with the experiences that we've had, usually those final products tend to lead into installations and hanging the photographs in places like schools, city halls, and public squares where key stakeholders can see them. So, because what we have heard is, especially with our youth, is that they want other people involved in their school setting, in the school environment, to see what they have to say, to listen to what they have to say. So, due to the pandemic, at the moment, we have not been able to create an installation, like physical installation, to share the products, but we hope for next semester to be able to do that. And what we have done is create different prototypes to like digital prototypes, so we can share what we have done. And we also have created some digital stories that if we have time, we could present you one of those products. And as part of PROSA, which is a bigger project, we will continue to develop those spaces for our youth to express themselves and for us as adults to listen to what they have to say. And this process of creating their final product has been really eye-opening for the people that we have shared the experience with, because the level of depth that the narratives have been, it's incredible. So at the moment we're planning, and probably when we have those exhibitions, we're gonna send you the link so you can experience it, have the experience yourselves.
And we're going to quickly share the narrative that we co-constructed here on what learning should be. And open up the space for dialogue. So here we go. So what we do is we usually create this narrative, and we can show you that product later. But thinking about what learning should be in this group, if this were a virtual gallery and we would develop our stories and captions, we would walk through the different pictures, and we would also share those meaningful words that are associated with that. And we create a collective narrative in terms of that. So we know that within this group, learning should be exploring. It should be about connecting with other people. And I think that's a big challenge in terms of the world, right, we were living in, which was very individualized. About multiplicity and creating diversity, and about different functions, right? And how we can use technology for good. A lot of people sort of like see technology like the bad side of it, but we can also use it for good and use lots of ideas and tools that are available to us. So given that general product, we'd like to open up. We'll share with you our digital story at the end, but we'd like to open this up to some dialogue. Oh, sorry, I don't know why this is jumping up. Very briefly, our lessons learned with these groups so far, it's that there's a lot of need for these spaces to, expressing themselves very liberatingly and to be heard within their voice. The importance of play and performance, because if you just ask a person a deep question, the walls go up. So how play can be used as a way to create bonds and open up that space. The importance of gender perspective, because that's the topic of our project. And also the importance of more participatory methods and relational work when we develop work within the communities and stuff that we want to do with them in schools and communities and therapeutic settings. So given that, I want to open it up. I know some people had some questions. If you want to chat or unmute yourselves.
Yes, I want to know the stickers. You mentioned about there's 3 colors, right? And the one color.
Yes, that's the Miro app. So it's like a virtual board to use Post-its. Yes, we put it in the chat.
I miss out the 3 different type of sticker. One is for the person who take the picture, they can stick on their voice. What about another 2?
The other is, and we just color code them because we want to make sure that it's very visible that the different voices and diversity are being heard. So the second color, you can choose any color you want. The second color is the response to that original voice. And then a third color is like a response. It's like a rippling effect, right? Responses to response. So it's more, we use it more as a tool to make it visually very obvious that the diversity of voices are being included. And when we create that big narrative, that one story that collects all the voices, we want to make sure we have words of each one of those Post-its, that none of them are excluded. And that's how we create that collective story.
The third one is the voice that responds to the second voice.
Yes.
Okay, sure.
Yes, that might include the person that took the photo and the other people that are involved in the group.
And when you mentioned about the structure of the arc, there are different station. Let's say you're traveling and there's a different station. And I wonder, did you just assign few students in different area and then you ask them to share the possibility?
Yeah,
For example,
it depends on the group. Some of them we do assign, and some of them we just say, what do you think should be the opening problem? And where does the solution, and what picture do you see represents a solution? And we always validate with them time and again. If we move something around, we're like, well, this makes a bit more sense. What do you think about that? So we lead the way, but it's also, we make sure it's very participative and that they make the decisions.
Yes, and the beauty of that is that sometimes it has surprised us, because as the people that are guiding the process, we sometimes think, oh, this story might go this route, but then the group comes up with something completely different direction, and it has been a really great experience to present the space for them to be creative and to tell the story that they really want to tell.
Yeah. Thank you. I think Saliha had a question or a comment. I don't know if.
Sure. So maybe the slide is a good one for the one.
Which one?
The slide that you're on.
Oh, okay.
A couple of questions. One is a process question, and that is like when you say assume your assigned role according to the narrative arc. The way I'm understanding, tell me if I'm understanding correct, that their pictures are going to form the arc. So different pictures get located at the climax or the exposition or something, right? Mm-hmm. So then they're speaking and their voice is creating that arc. So that's a beautiful feeling to be part of, I imagine. The question I have is the way narrative, at least the way we're talking about it here, can create this dichotomy. And I know from knowing Paloma's work and all of that, you all hold complexity. How do you not get tied into that, the good story and the bad story, right? That part, like, oh, this is the typical version, right? The bad guy and the good guy wins in the end. How do we avoid that in the social spaces of life? And how do we hold that complexity in narrative in this way?
Maybe Rosa and Gabriela wants to add to it. We had this group where gender issues started coming up, right? And like very traditional roles of, these were teenagers and the guys were sort of saying like demonizing feminist ideas that were being brought in. And then this other girl was like, but why do you say that? So we started framing the conversation around curiosity. We always have these sort of agreements we review before every session. And one is always be curious, always validate with the yes and, right? So it was a lot of questions. What do you mean by that? And what about this moment? And what about these exceptions? So we start sort of breaking down their very dominant, cohesive narrative and start opening up these other possibilities. And, you know, as Rosa said, it works beautifully because they start seeing that they can coexist and they create. So we see lots of narratives with the buts. We see lots of narratives with the ands, you know, this happens and this can also happen. And for example, the topic of abortion, we have people from the city metro area. You think an island as small as ours would be very homogeneous, but it's very diverse. And some of them were very conservative in the mountains. Oh, we're going to close soon. And so they started seeing that we can have sex and we can use protection, and some people choose to have the baby, some teens, and if they get help, it can go okay. And others also choose abortion, and we should provide a space for all of that.
I want to chime in really quickly, and it is because we didn't have the time, we couldn't go through the process. We saw the product, but we didn't really see the process, or we didn't go through the process. And I think the richness in this method is this dialogue that Paloma is talking about. It is there in the conversation and in the dialogue, providing a safe space for that. That is where the complexity comes in. That's where the different voices are heard within a safe space between them, between the youth.
Yeah.
And that's what's missing here. That's what necessarily we can't transmit, maybe, but in the process, that's the richness of it. That's
Yes.
where the dichotomy comes in and gets out, and the complexity
The
comes
conflict.
in. It is in
Yeah.
the dialogue.
The conflict, yeah.
Thank
So
you.
there is the linear story is just a product. In the end of the day, the richness of the method is in the dialogue precisely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Rosa, if you want to close up, I'm sorry, but this thing is like, it's flashing in my eyes that we're going to close in 40
Yes.
seconds.
And we have to stop the video, so that's
Yes,
very
I need to remember to stop the video.
Yes.
I'm gonna put in my email in the chat. So if you guys would like further info on this, you could email us and we can gladly send you some examples. We can send you some supportive tools we use. We also shared in the chat, we shared the different resources and tools. So if you want to download that, it'll be accessible to you once this session ends, I think, anyways. And I think this is
I'm gonna
the-
share.
okay. We
Welcome back, everyone, from your concurrent session A. I hope you had a wonderful